Good morning. My name is Nadine Dolby, and I'm the president of Animal Advocates of Greater Lafayette. I'm really pleased to be back here today. Today I'm with Dr. Emily Curry. She is a clinical assistant professor of mobile surgery and shelter medicine. That's a mouthful. I'll say it again. Mobile surgery and shelter medicine in the College of Veterinary Medicine here at Purdue. And today we are going to talk about all different kinds of cats. But first, Dr. Curry, tell us something about your position at Purdue. What do you do there?
So mostly I'm involved with teaching senior veterinary students in their final year of school, in their clinical year, getting ready to become vets out in the world, and teaching them more about basic primary care, including vaccinations, wellness exams, care for parasites or wounds or things like that. And then we're also spaying and neutering these animals at the same time. So they're learning elective surgeries that they're going to be doing out in the world. And we're also partnering with our local shelters. So those are our patients that we work with. So we're helping our community while also teaching these students. So it's a really cool partnership and outreach program where we're getting to do both a lot of educational opportunities and a lot of community outreach.
That is so great. And we talked about spay and neuter the last time I was here with the director of the low-cost spay and neuter clinic. So that was really very educational for people.
Awesome.
So I am guessing that you do a lot of spays and neuters of cats.
Oh yes.
And we are going to focus on talking about cats today, particularly as the weather gets colder. So first, can you talk a little bit about, what's the difference between a domesticated cat and a feral cat? Why are cats so different and how they relate to humans?
So a lot of it really comes down to their socialization, whether they have been acclimated to humans, if they were born into a situation where they never had human interaction or touch or care early on. Once you reach a threshold in their development, so usually about 3 or 4 months maybe, if they haven't had that interaction, they're not going to be socialized to humans. And so a feral cat is truly a wild animal, and so they look like our domesticated cats, but they're going to be extremely fearful and apprehensive of any humans because they haven't had that socialization. So that's the main difference. People will use feral cats interchangeably with outdoor cats, but that's not always the same thing. There are lots of very friendly, sociable outdoor cats. A feral cat is one that you truly cannot approach, you cannot pick up safely, you cannot touch, because they just have not had that socialization aspect in their development.
Okay, so if I see a cat walking down my street, what kind of clues can I use to tell if the cat is a stray cat, maybe a domesticated outdoor cat, or a feral cat? It gets very confusing.
Yes, yeah. So one of the biggest things is you can just see how the cat relates to you.
Okay.
So if you even, say you're hearing cats, 6 feet or more apart, and they see you, you can stop where you are. You could even try calling to it. Here, kitty, kitty. Patting your leg. If they start to come over to you, and especially if they are very apt to come over to you, rub on your leg, let you pet them, anything like that, they are domesticated. They are a domesticated cat. They may not belong to an in-home situation, but they've definitely been around people enough that they know that they're friendly, trying to help them. If the cat either stops right in its tracks and kind of stares straight at you, or starts to lift its back end like it's trying to make itself look bigger, that's a cat that may be either just very fearful, needs a little bit of work to warm up to you, or maybe a cat that you want to keep your distance because the more you come at them, the more they're going to run away. Not often are cats, unless they are cornered, going to come at you and attack. If it's a wide open space, they're just going to run away and find a hiding place. So that's the best way, is kind of seeing how they relate to you first off, just even from a distance. So always give them a little bit of time to see you, to kind of figure out how they're feeling about you, and then assess the situation if they come over to you.
Okay. So is there anything physically that we can look for in the cat's appearance?
Sometimes you can look at just the thriftiness or unthriftiness of the cat. Does it look like they've been well maintained, especially long hair cats? Is it covered in mats, or is their hair missing? Do they look really thin, or are they nice and chunky, probably getting plenty of food and care somewhere? The other thing you can look for is sometimes cats that have been through a trap, neuter, return program, which I know we'll talk about in a minute, will have their left ear tipped. So the tip of their left ear is actually missing. And it should be a very distinct missing piece. In the past, sometimes they would notch ears, and we realized quickly that looked too much like wounds from cat fights, which happen. So this should be a very distinct, tip of the left ear missing, and that would indicate that those cats have been through a program where they've already been spayed and neutered, vaccinated at least against rabies, and all done in the care of a veterinarian, and then returned to their environment. So that's a way right off the bat you can say, okay, I know this cat is feral and socialized, but it's been taken care of. It appears healthy at this point, and we can let it just go about its business. It knows what it's doing.
Okay, so that brings up a really important issue that I wanted to talk about today. We often hear about colony cats or community cats. Can you explain what those terms mean?
So colony cats or community cats are a group of cats that live together, usually in an outdoor, it could be a barn situation, but more of an outdoor area, and they've established their own kind of hierarchy within their group. They typically have caretakers, so people that may put out food or provide shelter for them, but they're not the legal owners. So they care for those animals, but it's not the same as having your own pet cat in your home or even an outdoor pet cat. And then community cats or cat colonies, oftentimes they're feral or unsocialized. It can be varying degrees of socialization, especially if they are more working cats. So barn cats for rodent control or things like that. Or even some really large factories may have cats, colonies of cats to help with rodent control again. So that part can vary, but a cat colony is an established group of cats. They have kind of established where each cat fits in that group. It's almost similar to a pack of dogs, but in cat world. And like I said, they may have a caretaker, but not a legal owner for those cats.
I think Disney World is very well known.
Yes, for their community cats.
For their community cats.
Yeah.
They do
and they can be very well loved, even if you can't pick these cats up and pet them. You can really get to know their personalities from afar and get to know each individual member of the group. But it is just a different dynamic than your cats at home that may jump up on your lap and want petted or things like that.
So one thing that's important for people to know, I think, is that cats sort of exist on a spectrum.
Yes.
Of how they relate to humans.
Absolutely.
Right, and we're used to thinking of cats in sort of two big buckets. The ones that sit in our laps and sort of feral cats maybe that we can't touch at all. But there often is sort of an in-between ground there.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. And in my job especially, sometimes we'll have cats in who we really have to just give them a little bit of time in our environment to relax and see how their personalities are going to come out, because a fearful cat is not always the same as a feral cat. And so a lot of times they just need a little bit of time, coaxing, allowing us to give them the space they need to sort of adapt to that new environment. And the same thing can happen in shelter environments as well. Certainly it's a stressful place for a cat, and so sometimes they just need some time. But the more you work with cats, the more you can start to see that spectrum of feral, semi-feral, fearful, but could be socialized, all the way to your, while you have your cats that are friendly when they want to be, when they decide to be, and then there's some cats that are just so social, they want to be with you all the time. So there's a wide variety of personalities, and I think people don't always understand and appreciate that about cats, is they come in all different flavors.
That is really important for people to know. The other term I hear all the time is TNR. Can you tell us what TNR is and why is it important?
Yeah, so I mentioned that a little bit before, but TNR typically means trap, neuter, return. Sometimes people call it trap, neuter, release, but the return part is really important because when you have an established cat colony and that cat knows its area and its group members, you really want to return them to the place where you trapped them. So this is a program where cats are trapped in humane live traps. Usually lured in with food, but they are not injured in the process of trapping them. The purpose is to get them to a veterinary clinic safely, and then once they're with that veterinary clinic, they can be assessed, at least visually, even if we can't put our hands on them yet, made sure that they are healthy enough for surgery and anesthesia, and if that's the case, then we will go ahead and perform anesthesia just like we would on any other pet. We would make sure that they're fully under anesthesia, before performing that surgery, they are spayed or neutered, whichever is appropriate. Spayed for females, neutered for males. They are always tattooed, so there's a little green line on their abdomen that indicates that they've been spayed or neutered. However, we also do the ear tipping because, again, feral cats, you can't necessarily just pick them up and look at their belly. So from a distance, you can see the ear tipping indicates that these cats have been spayed or neutered, vaccinated at least against rabies. Most importantly, because that is a zoonotic disease, which means animals and people can get it. So it's very important to protect animal health and human health. Sometimes there are other core vaccines we will give those patients as well, depending on resources available. And then once recovered from surgery and back into their trap, that trap is taken back to their environment where they were taken from originally, and then they are released. And so that's, sometimes it's called trap, neuter, vaccinate, return. Sometimes people put that in there, but usually it's just a given that they are vaccinated at least against rabies when they're under that care.
So why is this the humane approach for both humans and animals for taking care of feral cats? I mean, I know in the, not so long ago, they would be trapped and they would be euthanized. Why is this the approach that you take?
The trouble that we were finding, not our program specifically, but in general when they were doing trap and kill or trap and euthanize even procedures, is that there's this thing called the vacuum effect. And so what would happen is if there's a spot with shelter and food, so resources for a colony of cats, and you just take all of those cats out of the colony and euthanize or kill, as soon as you remove those cats that were defending that territory, new cats just come in. Necessarily people putting out cat houses and food, because you could say, okay, just take those away. We kept finding that more and more cats would come into those areas. And so it wasn't an effective means of managing those populations. Whereas if we spay and neuter, those colonies of cats are not able to reproduce, but they're going to continue to be in that territory and not allow new cats to come in. So it really stabilizes that community. And it can take time, certainly, because if you start your trap, neuter, return program while there are kittens that are too young to be spayed or neutered, you'll have to go back to that area. So it does require some planning and thought over time, but it's really the most effective way to manage those cat populations so that it's not overwhelming for a caretaker or for the environment, because cats not only kill rodents, but also birds and other wildlife occasionally. So you need to keep that in check. But it's also the most humane option for those cats, and a way that we can certainly get them the care that they need, and the vaccinations that they really need too.
So winter is coming soon. This morning was very cold. What can people do to help colony and community cats survive a harsh Indiana winter? I mean, should you just take them and put them in your living room?
Absolutely not. These cats, remember, feral cats are wild animals, so it would be similar to taking a very small tiger and putting that in your house. So not a good idea for your safety or for the safety and the stress level of the animal. The best thing you can do is to provide some additional food and shelter. So outdoor cats, community cats, feral cats, all of them are pretty well adapted, taking care of themselves, but we can certainly give them a little boost. So that may mean if you have a barn or shed structure, that's great, and leaving out a little extra cat food in addition to what they might be able to catch on their own. But there's also things you can do in non-rural areas, even urban environments. There are cat house structures that you can create very inexpensively. A lot of times it just has the use of either styrofoam tubs and straw, or plastic tubs and straw. And you can create those little cat houses to provide warmth, and you can also put some food in there to allow them to build up those nutrients that they need over winter. So that's one of the best things that you can do. And there are lots of tutorials out there. One of the best websites I've found is alleycat.org, which is Alley Cat Allies, which is all things cats, especially TNR and caring for community cats. So they have a really nice, simple tutorial for a nice, inexpensive, easy cat house that you can build and put anywhere. The biggest thing they mention is make sure to use straw and not hay, because hay is going to get really wet and moldy, whereas straw is just going to keep them warm without holding in that moisture. So good tip there.
Okay, and is there anything that we should do for domesticated cats over the winter, particularly if we have cats that are indoor outdoor cats.
Yeah, I mean, making to allow them plenty of time to come indoors if they want to do that, or providing heated areas either in your garage or around your house, that is helpful too. But that's the biggest thing, is if they have that choice, you want to make sure that they do have that option as often as they need it to come inside. So you're just keeping a little closer tabs on your indoor outdoor cats, whereas when the weather is nice, you can allow them to be out longer. Want to keep track of how long have they been out? Do I need to make sure that they are in a safe place? Do I need to call for them or put out food, and make sure that they can come inside if they need to?
And the other thing that I would think is important is just access to water that's not frozen.
Yes. Yep.
And that would be for both colony cats and domesticated cats.
For sure. And when you put out food, you can kind of double down on that a little bit by putting out some canned food and even adding some water to that, so that cats are getting food and water in one, or a little extra nutrients there. That can be helpful. Certainly dry food to put down is not going to freeze as much as canned food, so you might want to have both options.
Right.
But putting the canned food, and especially adding a little water, can kind of entice them sometimes even more. It's very smelly and stinky, and cats use their nose even more so than dogs do. So that can be a great enticer to them to a warm place.
And there are heated cat bowls available. They are a little bit pricey.
Yes.
So, but you can definitely just be changing the water, because it will be freezing overnight.
Absolutely. Yes. Very, very good point. For sure.
And everyone who's watching this should know that Almost Home Humane Society does have a support program for colony caretakers, where they will assist you with some of these things for colony cats if you register with them. So that is an excellent local resource to know about, particularly as the winter, kind of sets in and it becomes more challenging for colony cats to survive.
For sure. And another thing I will say about colony cats is sometimes people get into a situation where they didn't intend to have a cat colony, but it kind of chose them. And so if you are looking into doing a TNR program to try and help out your cat colony, keep them as healthy as you can be, and stabilize that population, just make sure you educate yourself really well. It's definitely not as simple as just setting out a trap and leaving it and the cat comes and then you take them in. So there's a lot of process to it, and making sure we do it a healthy and safe way for those animals, particularly if you're thinking about doing it in possible inclement weather. So that alleycat.org is a great resource to learn about that, and then places like Almost Home and established TNR programs that can help educate you about that, to make sure that we're doing it in the right way so that it is safe and healthy for animals and humans involved.
And anyone locally who wants to do that can contact Animal Advocate, and we will help you figure out the process, and we'll put you in touch with the local resources.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else that you want us to know, Dr. Curry, as animal advocates, that we can be doing for cats? Is there anything we forgot to talk about?
I mean, I think the most wonderful thing is just educating people. Cats can be very misunderstood creatures. I'll be honest, before I went to veterinary school and then became a veterinarian, I did not understand nearly enough about cats. Having your own really helps that. But then just working with them more and more and understanding that they do have that spectrum of personalities and of socialization, and that they really are incredible creatures that can provide so much help and comfort and care for humans, but also just in our environment and our world, and they really should be appreciated for all that they are. So, even those cats that we can't touch, like I said, they have personalities all their own and amazing abilities. So I think the best thing is just reaching out and educating different people about cats, especially when they haven't had interaction with them or experience with them. There's a lot of misconceptions.
Thank you so much for joining us
Of
today.
course.
And on behalf of Animal Advocates and Food Finders, I want to say thank you for everything that you do for the community. We appreciate you.
Of course. And I forgot to mention earlier, our program at Purdue, the spay and neuter program, is called Priority for Paws. So we usually have a mobile surgery unit that you'll see driving around town to local shelters. Currently with COVID, we are stationary, but we still have our big trailer that has Priority for Paws on it. So if you ever hear anything about Purdue Priority for Paws, that's what we do, working with community outreach and educating students at the same time. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you for all that you do. We really appreciate it. It is such a community network of helping animals and ensuring human health at the same time as well. So we can't do it without each other.
Thank you, and thank you for all of you who are watching this, because you also are part of the solution.